Number one, it's transparency. So we have third-party screening committees that review all of the applications. So it is not just me and my team who makes decisions to accept applications from the SUV file. We have third-party screening committees made up of lawyers, accountants, banks, and people who are champions of the economy here in Winnipeg who review the applications and make a recommendation for us. So third-party transparency. So if, for example, there's ever IRCC asks why we accepted this client, we would say it was already screened and referred to us by a third party. The second reason that we believe we are the gold standard is the speed that we have. So I know we're going to touch on this, and I'll cover it very quickly. Once we get an application in, within 21 days, we're going to have it in front of a third-party screening committee. We're going to get communication back to the applicant, and we can issue a contract within about 48 hours if the applicant wants to move forward. And then once we get that contract back from the applicant, within another 48 hours, we can issue a letter of support. So we can go from application to issuing a letter of support and having the client fully engaged in our program within 30 days. And the and then the third area that makes us the gold standard in our mind is the one-on-one business advisory services that we provide to applicants once they are in the program. So we don't necessarily believe in putting people into a cohort and educating a group of people at the same time. What we do is we give every applicant one-on-one business advisor with a great roster from our business advisors, and we have monthly activity. And then we also track and record that monthly activity. So now the client, if IRCC asks the client, hey, how committed are you to your business? What are you doing? We have a fully auditable track record to show the engagement we have and how we're moving that client down the commercialization pathway. And it's customized to each client because, as you say, sometimes we do have people at the idea stage. Sometimes they're fully blossomed businesses that want to relocate to come here to Canada. So our program is customized for the client. So those three reasons, transparency of third-party screening committee, speed, and then service delivery are what make us the gold standard in Canada. We treat this as a very sophisticated consulting firm when we're dealing with our SUV clients. We've got someone named Gord Blaine, who I think is on the call as a participant today. He has built and launched his own IT consulting practice. And what he has brought to that is structure and rigor. And really this coming back to this auditable delivery of services. So Gord is in charge of service delivery for us. And what we have done is we've applied the MTA commercialization pathway, where we have a disruptive technology that goes from idea to feasibility to development and then off to launch. So job one for us when we have a client that comes in, Gord assigns a business advisor. And okay, so I'm giggling a little bit, but I love the process we have. We have about 20 different business advisors with different skill sets and experiences, and they might have different abilities to work at early stage technologies versus later stage technologies, but we make them bid on the clients. So if we're bringing in every month, we close our books on the 20th to get clients in, and then Gord sends the clients, and we standardize our application with a pitch deck and a 2-page overview. Gord gets the advisors to look through, and if they want to work with one of those clients, they have to bid to Gord to say, here's why I'm going to be the best advisor possible for that client. So we've got a competitive process already in place. And that also goes back to our third-party screening. We've now got people saying, I think I can help this company. This company's good. I want to be involved. So we've got people bidding on it to be involved. Then we do our monthly status report, which starts with an assessment. Where is the company at on our commercialization pathway? We then spend the first sort of 30 days figuring that out and then doing gap analysis to say what's the next steps and what do they need to be successful. Then the business advisor, as I say, has one-on-one conversations with the applicant, and sometimes it's a team of 5, sometimes it's a team of 1. We'll interact with whoever the applicant wants. Sometimes all 5 are on the call, sometimes a team of 5, they want 2 people as the contacts. And we start laying out a plan and say, here are the top 3 things you have to do to help move this forward. And then we start saying, do you need help doing it? Access to our networks, access to our thinking. And so this one-on-one customized business process for moving ideas down the technology commercialization pathway is how we engage with clients. and this is information that's just on the Government of Canada website, but there's 3 primary check boxes that an applicant should have. Number 1 is the idea innovative? Number 2 is, can it help create jobs in Canada? And then number 3 is, can the idea compete on a global scale? So just for one of the ways I try to help people understand that would be, if someone wants to come up with an idea for a new type of, say, a restaurant, and we'll say coming to Winnipeg, and applicants can go anywhere in Canada they want except for Quebec, as you're aware. But let's just use Winnipeg as an example. If someone wants to come and have a new type of restaurant here in Winnipeg, that would not qualify, even if that specific type of restaurant is not here in Winnipeg. So it might be innovative, but you're servicing, a city or a 10-block district. You don't have the ability to scale. Mm-hmm. However, if someone has invented a new type of polycarbon steel that helps cut meat at restaurants, and they can sell that to restaurants the world over, then that would be the type of company that we would be able to come in and work with, because of the innovation there that has the ability to scale globally. So that's just an interesting reference that we have to help people understand who is eligible. Our process is, we've standardized our application process. So because we use a third-party screening committee, which consists completely of volunteers, we don't want to impose on them to read an 80-page business plan. So what we ask for are applicants to, number 1, complete our application. And I think all organizations have something similar. Number 2, we want a minimum of a 10-page, a 10-deck PowerPoint presentation that hits some of the high points of the business. So this would be similar to what you would see at a typical angel presentation of a pitch deck. Correct. And then the third thing that we require is a mini 2-page business plan overview. And I think you're familiar with the applications that we request. Yes. You've helped some people write some good ones.
Yes, and I'm going to talk about that later to tell everybody how we support people who want to apply to MTA.
Yeah, so we use that standardized approach to get the information into the hands of our third-party screening committee. Mm-hmm. And that also helps us a great deal, because now we're sort of comparing similar things with a similar lens. So we have an idea of the relative strengths and weaknesses in a comparative analysis between the applicants, because they're giving us the same sort of information. So once we have that application with the pitch deck and the 2-page business plan overview, we communicate back to the applicant saying we've received it, and within 21 days, it will be reviewed by a third-party screening committee. We then set about having that review, and we get feedback from the screening committee, and if it's successful, we communicate back to the client saying, good news, you've been approved. We always start our contracts on the 1st of the month. The approval is in effect for 90 days. So do you want to start, May 1st, June 1st, or July 1st? And then the client comes back with their preferred start date. We issue the contract. They sign the contract and give us a deposit for the first 3 months. So we want to know that people are serious about this program. We're allowed to charge a 3-month deposit on the first contract. So we charge that 3-month deposit. When we get the money in our bank and the signed contract, we then assign that business advisor and we start. So that, again, the process there is application, third-party screening review, legal and finance doing their thing on contracting. Then we assign a business advisor, and then that business advisor, as said, starts with that status report, where are we at, and starting to line up key milestones for the next 90 days.
Okay, great. And Marshall, I know you mentioned it at the start, but we have new people coming in. So how long does it usually take? Again, once they have submitted all the information, the 2-pager, the pitch deck, and the form, how long does it take for you to get back, and then the whole process?
So and I forgot to mention, I guess perhaps the most important part is we issue the letter of support usually within a week of getting that contract back. We batch them all up, so there's a bit of lag time. It's not customized at that point, but we try to get the letters of support out on the 7th of the month for the applicants who started. So in terms of the length of time for the entire process, we're looking at usually about 30 days for an idea that's accepted to letter of support. In terms of the length of time for the entire process, we're looking at usually about 30 days for an idea that's accepted to letter of support. And I would also say if the screening committee says, the answers are yes, and then we do that, maybe we do go with feedback and we hear, we give applicants a chance to communicate some of the questions we've had. And so we call those circle backs, not a very original name, but very functional. And then a lot of times we'll, get that extra data and that extra due diligence and make a decision there. And sometimes we just ask tell the applicant that we don't think they're going to be successful because they don't fit the criteria or we can't help them. So we encourage them to look elsewhere. But
okay, that's good.
Short answer to your question is 30 days from accepted to letter of support. The answer to that, as you're familiar with, is and the case study of us working with you in terms of some immigration consultants or lawyers. Whenever we have someone who wants to bring clients to us, we follow the same process. So what we're really focused on is being open and transparent. And I think we've had some questions. I don't know if any are on the chat there of, do we ever pay a commission to an immigration consultant or immigration lawyer for bringing us clients? The answer is no. We don't ever want to compromise our position of independence. We also don't want to get into the business of being lawyers or immigration consultants. We're not authorized to do that. We want to stay in our lane. And if you think of a swimming pool, a swimming race, we know what our lane is, and that's to provide good service to help clients commercialize their technology and do it in a fashion that is supported by IRCC. So the client is successful, we're successful, and in the case of the immigration consultants we work with, they're successful. The same way, even if somebody wants to eventually set up their business in Toronto or Montreal, I shouldn't use Montreal, I was using New Marinelle as an example, but in different parts of Canada, we deliver our program virtually for a lot of clients who wait until they get their PR and then they choose to come to Canada. So this is actually a national program, and we've cleared this with the government of Canada as well. I want people to come to Manitoba, and I'm saying if they're working with MTA, shouldn't they have to come to Winnipeg or Manitoba? And the Canadian government said, no, we want the applicants in Canada, and this is a Canadian program. So applicants are free to choose where they live and where they set up their business, with the restriction of Quebec, which has their own program. And the same way with immigration consultants and lawyers. We do screen, we only want to work with good people. So we're mindful of who we work with because we want our reputation to maintain gold standard, but we're open to work with immigration consultants and lawyers, as well as just individuals who want to approach us and with the application package. In terms of industry sectors, we don't have a specific focus. There are things we like, but it's not that we're going to not accept an idea because it's not within our industry sector focus. We really like medical devices. I would argue that biopharma and vaccines, so things that need a wet lab and like $5 billion to commercialize over 14 years, we would probably be a little hesitant to engage with. We also like software, advanced manufacturing, new materials, and clean tech. So really the type of sectors that angels are investing into as well. One of the things we're mindful of is if we're going into industry sector where there's not access to capital or market demand, it limits our ability to help the client and to scale that company. But there's no specific sector we would say no to, but we are better served in med tech, software, and advanced engineering. What we do is a very distinct firewall between advisors if we have companies that are in competing spaces. But What we usually find, so let's just say it's, making computers. There's lots of parts that go into a computer. So what we actually try to do is find someone who can make the screen, someone who's making the keyboard, someone who's making the microprocessors. And if they're complementary, we have in the past connected our SUV applicants to each other, and they still have individual companies, but at the same time, it's a case of 1 + 1 = 3, where we can find collaboration and strategic relationships. I'll answer with the null hypothesis of who we are not looking for. We're not interested in someone who wants to make an application, not be involved in driving their business, and quote unquote game the system to just get PR. And this comes back to our gold standard and our monthly engagement. We want people who are committed to drive this business forward, and they can do it from wherever they're currently living as they wait for PR. But none of us are in the same room right now, and we're all connecting and collaborating and working together. So regardless of where the applicant sits, they can still work towards driving their business forward. And I recognize it might not be a full-time job, but it should be at least a pretty committed passion and a part-time job. So we want people who are going to be active and really try to commercialize their technology or grow their business. Our set fee, so if there's one person applying, our fee is $2,100 a month. If there's every other person who applies, up to 5, we add $500 to the monthly fee. So a team of 1 would be $2,100, a team of 2 would be $2,600, a team of 3 would be $3,100. And we have a maximum term of 18 months. When we got into this business, PRs were given a lot faster, and we didn't have a term on our contract. But now with COVID and slowing down of processing times, we've introduced a term limit of 18 months. So if someone is with us 18 months, still doesn't have PR, they can terminate the contract, and we consider them a client, a graduate and a client in good standing, and we would still support them with their PR process. Yeah, we want our applicants to incorporate within 90 days of being accepted and incorporate here in Canada, but they don't need to be incorporated in their home country or have anything registered. We're focused on that disruptive technology, and then we're gonna, part of the process is, we'll introduce them to lawyers and accountants to get them going, but you don't need to have a functioning business to apply. So you can have up to 5 people on the application, and each person can bring their dependents and spouse. So in terms of the value of the project, I'm not sure what that means. I would go back to the criteria we would have to accept. Has to be innovative, ability to scale globally, bring jobs to Canadians. And one of the things to be mindful of is if you are putting, everybody who's put on that application has to be important to the business, or critical to the business. Not urgent for a work permit, but critical. So you can't have, like, they should be vice president of engineering, vice president of sales, CFO. It shouldn't be someone who unlocks the door every morning. That wouldn't be considered an essential person to the business.
Okay, so it is not about the value, but it needs to be eligible with the 3 considerations for the startup visa, but it doesn't necessarily have a projected revenue of a certain amount.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Ying Ying Liu asks, does MTA also help the startups get capital funding?
We do a little bit. That's outside of scope of the regular SUV contract, but we are in the process of raising some capital for one of our clients now, and we also have I manage an angel investor group, so we will help clients get capital, but that is outside of scope of the SUV services contract. We do a little bit. That's outside of scope of the regular SUV contract, but we are in the process of raising some capital for one of our clients now, and we also have I manage an angel investor group, so we will help clients get capital, but that is outside of scope of the SUV services contract.
Yes.
There is no formal interview process, but there's lots. What we find is there's lots of back and forth that we have with the applicant as we ask questions, look for clarity, and so Sydney Pfeiffer manages that process for us, and she helps applicants and gets a good feel for them as well. And frankly, that's a bit of our due diligence process as well. We want to see people who are responsive and polite.